Hello, all you freedom-loving people. The Pentagon's investigating Senator Mark Kelly after President Trump's comments about seditious behavior. The indictments of James Comey and Letitia James were dismissed, and the Fugees rapper who funneled funds to Obama's campaign got 14 years. Okay, let's get into it. Today, a federal judge dismissed the indictments of former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. The judge ruled that the prosecutor who brought the indictments was invalidly appointed. District Judge Cameron McGowan Curry said that all actions that resulted from the appointment of Lindsay Halligan were unlawful exercises of executive power and are hereby set aside. Curry dismissed the indictments, but she said that her ruling was without prejudice. This normally means that the charges could be brought again. But the deadline for charging Comey has already passed, so the government can't file the same case with the same charges again. The lawyers for Comey and James had asked Curry to dismiss the charges with prejudice, which would have blocked the government from ever bringing them back. But in James's case, Curry said that the better solution would be to hold a new hearing in front of someone who was properly appointed. Halligan was appointed by Attorney General Pam Bondi as interim attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. And previously, the Justice Department argued that even if Halligan's appointment was invalid, the indictments should stand because they were approved by Pam Bondi. But Curry rejected that argument and described Bondi's attempt to ratify Halligan's actions as ineffective. Curry based her decision on a law that says temporary attorneys can only work for 120 days. If no one permanent is chosen after that, a judge can pick someone to fill the spot. But at a hearing on November 13th, the DOJ argued that the rule doesn't limit them to just one 120-day appointment. They argued that they could keep picking new temporary attorneys, and each new temporary attorney would be allowed to stay for 120 days at a time. But Curry disagreed. She said that it is the federal court in the Eastern District of Virginia that has the authority to choose the replacement, not the Attorney General. So the Trump administration will probably appeal today's ruling. But there are still obstacles before these cases can even go to trial.
No, because Lindsay Halligan was legally appointed, and that's the administration's position. I know there was a judge who is clearly trying to shield Letitia James and James Comey from receiving accountability, and that's why they took this unprecedented action to throw away the indictments against these two individuals. But the Department of Justice will be appealing very soon, and it is our position that Lindsay Halligan is extremely qualified for this position, but more importantly, was legally appointed to it.
What was President Trump's reaction to those indictments against Comey and James being thrown out?
His reaction was, we've seen this before. We've seen partisan judges take unprecedented steps to try to intervene in accountability before, but we're not going to give up.
Today's ruling also highlighted a growing problem for the DOJ. This is because the DOJ is currently running into political pushback over some of its temporary attorney appointments. Along with Halligan, Alina Habba is also facing a court challenge over her appointment in New Jersey, and the Third Circuit Court of Appeals is expected to decide that case soon. The United States has recently become embroiled in renewed controversy surrounding military authority and presidential command powers. Today, the Pentagon announced that Senator Mark Kelly is under investigation after the Department of War received allegations that he engaged in misconduct. While the specific nature of the allegations has not been disclosed, Kelly was one of the 6 lawmakers who recently appeared in a video saying that members of the military can or should refuse illegal orders. So what was that video? Earlier this week, Democratic senators Elisa Slotnick of Michigan, Mark Kelly of Arizona, along with Representatives Chris DeLucio and Chrissy Houlihan of Pennsylvania, Maggie Goodlander of New Hampshire, and Jason Crow of Colorado, released a video directly addressing active duty military personnel and intelligence officers. They said, the law is very clear. You can refuse unlawful orders. All 6 of them possess military or intelligence backgrounds. At the time, President Trump posted multiple messages on Truth Social condemning their remarks in the video. He called the group traitors on his Truth Social post. He said later that they were guilty of seditious behavior, punishable by death. So it's only natural that President Trump's choice of words would provoke a greater reaction. House Speaker Mike Johnson confirmed that the Department of Justice and the Pentagon are investigating the legitimacy of their video. And Speaker Johnson also does not believe that President Trump's post constituted a call for violence, but rather defined a crime. And he described the Democrats' video as utterly inappropriate. He said, "It is very dangerous. You have leading members of Congress telling troops to disobey orders. I think that's unprecedented in American history." The Democratic congressional leadership swiftly defended their colleagues. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries voiced support for the lawmakers, stating that their records prove them to be patriots devoted to their country. But the Pentagon also reminded everyone that military retirees still have to follow the Uniform Code of Military Justice and a federal law that makes it illegal to do anything that harms the loyalty, morale, or discipline of the armed forces. Anyone who breaks that federal law can be sentenced to up to 10 years in prison.
Investigation into Mark Kelly. What do you make of his response that it's just intimidation?
The White House is supportive of the Department of War's investigation into Senator Mark Kelly, and I think what Senator Mark Kelly was actually trying to do was intimidate the 1.3 million active duty service members who are currently serving in our United States Armed Forces with that video that he and his Democrat colleagues put out. Senator Mark Kelly well knows the rules of the military and the respect that one must have for the chain of command, and that all lawful orders are presumed to be legal by our service members. You can't have a functioning military if there is disorder and chaos within the ranks, and that's what these Democrat members were encouraging. It's very clear, and not a single one of them, since they've been pressed by the media, and I'll give you guys credit for that, can point to a single illegal order that this administration has given down, because it does not exist. They knew what they were doing in this video, and Senator Mark Kelly and all of them should be held accountable for that.
At Thursday's press briefing, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt emphasized that President Trump had not called for the execution of lawmakers, but stressed that the Democratic lawmakers' message may be subject to legal consequences. However, Slotnick stated during an interview on ABC News' Sunday political program this week that she was unaware of any instances where the president had broken the law.
Let's talk right now. Do you believe President Trump has issued any illegal orders?
To my knowledge, I am not aware of things that are illegal, but certainly there are some legal gymnastics that are going on with these Caribbean strikes and everything related to Venezuela.
Slotnick was formerly a CIA analyst who participated in the Iraq War, as well as a former astronaut and retired naval officer. On Sunday, Vice President J.D. Vance stated, if the president hasn't issued illegal orders, then the members of Congress telling the military to defy the president is by definition illegal. Under the UCMJ, service members must obey lawful orders, but are obligated to disobey unlawful ones. However, for soldiers, if the orders they disobey are subsequently proven lawful, then they may face criminal penalties under Article 90 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice for willful disobedience of a superior officer, and Article 92 of the Uniform Code of Military Justice for failure to obey an order. President Trump's once prominent supporter, Georgia Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, refuted reports that she's planning to run for president. Her latest comments that denied a presidential bid were in response to an article from Time magazine, which reported that Greene had considered running for president in 2028. The report came after Greene announced on social media on Friday that she will resign her seat in Congress on January 5th, 2026. Greene wrote on X yesterday that I'm not running for president, and never said I wanted to, and have only laughed about it when anyone would mention it. Green said that she's not motivated by power and titles, and she argued that the political industrial complex has destroyed our country and will never allow someone like me or you to rise to power and actually solve the crises that plague all of us. Recently, Green's relationship with President Trump has soured. In recent weeks, Green has criticized President Trump for paying too much attention to foreign policy and not doing enough to fulfill his America First campaign promises. Regarding the disclosure of the Epstein files, the two openly disagreed. Green spearheaded the legislation to release the Epstein files. Although President Trump ultimately signed the bill into law, this led to a public rift between the two. President Trump has withdrawn his endorsement of Green, stating that he would support any challenger who runs against her in the primary. To avoid infighting within the Republican Party, Green decided to resign from Congress and not participate in the primaries. Green said in a post on X, "I have too much self-respect and dignity, love my family way too much, and do not want my sweet district to have to endure a hurtful and hateful primary against me by the president we all fought for, only to fight and win my election while Republicans will likely lose the midterms. But given their personalities, their relationship is likely to warm up again once they've had some time to cool off." After all, President Trump and Elon Musk have already restored their ties, and President Trump can even coexist peacefully with New York's Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. So how could he possibly turn against his most loyal supporters? The American rapper and businessman Pras Michel has been sentenced to 14 years in prison for orchestrating unregistered lobbying operations. Pras Michel is the founder of the 1990s hit trio, the Fugees. In April of 2023, he was found guilty by a federal jury on 10 counts, including acting as an unregistered agent for foreign governments, illegal lobbying, money laundering, campaign finance violations, conspiracy, and witness tampering. The judge ordered the forfeiture of his assets totaling $64.9 million. According to a Voice of America report in April of 2023, court documents and evidence presented at the time revealed that Michel had conspired with several individuals acting on behalf of Malaysian tycoon Joe Low and a deputy minister from the CCP Ministry of Public Security. The aim was to influence President Trump and the DOJ to halt corruption investigations and asset forfeiture proceedings concerning Low and others who are linked to the 1MDB. The 1MDB scandal is the One Malaysia Development Berhad scandal, which is an ongoing corruption, bribery, and money laundering conspiracy. They were also aimed at attempting to facilitate the deportation of a Chinese dissident back to China. Former Attorney General Jeff Sessions testified that he was aware that the Chinese Communist government sought the extradition of this dissident, and Michel had arranged a meeting on the subject. However, Michel's lobbying efforts proved fruitless. Voice of America reported that although the Ministry of Justice statement did not disclose the names of the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Public Security and the dissident, relevant information indicates that the Deputy Minister is Sun Li-jun, while the dissident is Goulet, the wealthy businessman stranded in the United States and wanted by the CCP. Sun Li-jun was sentenced to death in China, with a 2-year reprieve in September of 2022 for bribery and illegal possession of firearms, which was later commuted to a life imprisonment sentence. Guo was subsequently arrested in New York in March of 2023. The U.S. Department of Justice accuses him of orchestrating an investment fraud scheme that defrauded victims of at least $1 billion. He remains in prison to this day. Michel was also involved in a multi-billion-dollar Malaysian financial scandal. According to the prosecutor's allegations, between 2012 and 2017, Michel received over $100 million from Joe Low, who is the wealthy Malaysian fugitive, to exert secret illegal foreign interference in American politics. This period spanned both the Obama and Trump administrations. Joe Low was the central figure in the notorious 1MDB scandal. In the early 2010s, He siphoned off approximately $4 billion from the fund and invested it in luxury U.S. real estate, fine art, and Hollywood films, including The Wolf of Wall Street, starring actor Leonardo DiCaprio. And Jolo remains a fugitive wanted worldwide. It's believed that he is currently hiding in Shanghai, China. Michel was also accused of assisting Jolo in secretly channeling funds into Obama's 2012 re-election campaign through shell companies while concealing the true sources of the donations. Furthermore, he attempted to lobby officials within Trump's first administration to drop investigations into Jolo. The trial of this case attracted widespread attention, with Hollywood actor Leonardo DiCaprio and former U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions both appearing in court to testify. The Department of Justice prosecutor harshly condemned Michel in court documents, stating that he had betrayed his country for money. Yesterday, delegations from the United States and Ukraine held talks in Geneva, Switzerland, to discuss the peace plan for Russia and Ukraine that was proposed by President Trump. President Trump had stated on Friday that Ukraine needs to accept this peace plan by November 27th. The head of the Ukrainian delegation was Andriy Yermak, the head of the presidential office. The American delegation included Secretary of State Marco Rubio, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, son-in-law of President Trump, and U.S. Secretary of the Army Daniel Driscoll, among others. But Russia was not involved in Sunday's talks in Geneva. After the talks, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that tremendous progress had been made. President Trump also expressed satisfaction. Ukrainian representatives also gave positive signals regarding the outcome of the meeting. Rubio updated the media twice on Sunday regarding the progress of the talks. In his first address, he stated that the 28-point peace plan proposed by the Trump administration incorporated the views of all relevant parties. Going into the talks, he said that there was one goal: to try to narrow the disagreements around key points. He said, "We have achieved that today in a very substantial way." Several hours later, Rubio addressed the media once more. He stated that talks had achieved tremendous progress. "It was very positive. I'm telling you, today was the most productive." Rubio also stated that he had briefed President Trump on the talks and President Trump is pleased with the progress. Rubio also said, "I think he's quite pleased at the reports we've given him about the amount of progress that's been made. But there are still some sticking points," Rubio said, characterizing the outstanding issues as a couple issues we need to continue to work on. He said, "I don't want to declare victory or finality here. There's still some work to be done, but we are much further ahead today at this time than we were when we began this morning." Ukrainian President Zelensky praised the substantive results from the meeting. He said that there are signs that President Trump's team is listening to their side. He also urged Ukrainians not to send conflicting signals and to maintain unity in their messaging. The White House said today that the Ukrainians believe the current draft of a peace plan to end the war reflects their national security interests after revisions and clarifications were made. The statement reads, "The Ukrainian delegation affirmed that all of their principal concerns, security agreements, long-term economic development, infrastructure protection, freedom of navigation, and political sovereignty were thoroughly addressed during the meeting. Much is changing. We are working very carefully on the steps needed to end the war." Ukraine also expressed its gratitude toward the U.S. and President Trump in a joint statement released by the White House. Before leaving Geneva and heading back to D.C., Rubio indicated that discussions would continue on a technical level. He said, "We're going to get there in a very reasonable period of time very soon." Rubio told the media that the peace plan is still being adjusted based on feedback from all parties. He described the current situation as extremely delicate. Ukraine is currently at a critical juncture. Russian forces have been making slow advances along the front lines in eastern and southern Ukraine. The Ukrainian transport hub of Pokrovsk has been partially occupied by Russian troops. Ukrainian commanders state that they lack sufficient manpower to halt the relentless Russian incursion. During the meeting between U.S. and Ukrainian representatives, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom submitted a revised European draft to the Geneva talks. Among the key changes included in the counterproposal was a softening of the language around restricting NATO in Europe. It also removed mention of territorial concessions. It demands a ceasefire before determining territorial swaps and that the current front line be the basis for any future discussions. Europeans also removed the 100-day deadline for elections in Ukraine. They instead said that elections will be held as soon as possible. The European proposal also removes all references to U.S.-Russia investment structures, moving toward an approach whereby Russia pays reparations to Ukraine. It also expanded the size of Ukraine's military to be capped at 800,000 in peacetime, which is the amount of military personnel that it currently has, compared to the limit of 600,000 stated in the U.S. plan. And according to information obtained by The Guardian, the revised European draft does not prohibit Ukraine from joining NATO. Instead, it acknowledges the current lack of consensus within the alliance. Moreover, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant shall be placed under the administration of the International Atomic Energy Agency, with electricity to be shared equally between Russia and Ukraine. And the European proposal also leaves scope for deploying a peacekeeping force in Ukraine. NATO has agreed to not maintain permanent garrisons during peacetime, though such a force could operate outside NATO command. But on Sunday, President Trump criticized Ukrainian and European officials, stating that they were attempting to rewrite the American drafted peace plan for Russia and Ukraine. However, President Trump also expressed optimism regarding the peace talks. He posted on Truth Social, "Is it really possible that big progress is being made in peace talks between Russia and Ukraine? Don't believe it until you see it, but something good just may be happening. God bless America." Brazilian authorities on Saturday arrested former President Jair Bolsonaro on grounds that he posed a flight risk. Brazil's Supreme Court sentenced Bolsonaro to 27 years and 3 months in prison in September of this year on 5 charges, including an attempted coup d'etat. Bolsonaro denies all allegations, though, and claims to be the victim of political persecution. Since then, he has been under house arrest. Brazil's Supreme Court said on Saturday that it had received information about the summoning of supporters to a vigil, which was organized by Bolsonaro's oldest son. The Supreme Court believes that it indicated a high possibility of an attempted escape, adding that there was a violation of Bolsonaro's electronic monitoring equipment in the early hours of the morning. The court said the information confirms the convict's intention to break the electronic ankle bracelet in order to ensure the success of his escape, facilitated by the confusion caused by the demonstration. Later on Saturday, the Supreme Court released a video in which a penal official examined the partially melted casing and questioned Bolsonaro about it. He asked, "Did you use anything to burn this here?" "Hot iron," Bolsonaro is heard replying. He explained that he did so out of curiosity and had not attempted to remove or damage it. Bolsonaro's attorney told Brazilian media that Bolsonaro would not have been able to escape his home since he was under armed guard. The former president of Brazil is an ally of President Trump. On Saturday, reporters asked President Trump if he had heard of Bolsonaro's arrest, and President Trump said that he had not heard. He said, "Is that what happened? That's too bad." President Trump said that he had spoken to Lula on Friday and would meet with him very soon. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember to leave a comment below the video. This is really helping us to be seen all around the world. The more people who watch Front Page, the more freedom-loving people the world will have. And please hit the like button and hit the notification bell after subscribing. And please share this video with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.